Signs in, but make sure attendance is. That's just, I will see. Instead of, I think for himself, that's.
I apologize for the delay. We not able to get the streaming set up, so Laura's gonna try and text with IT and stuff, see if we can get it sorted out. But in the meantime, we're gonna get it going. We are able to record, so your colleagues will still be able to see the meeting. Just unfortunately for those who tune in during the meeting, which we know is a lot of people, might not be able to see that. Like I said, we're gonna start with the roll call.
So I am recording it, and then what I'll do right afterwards is I'll upload it to YouTube. So unfortunately, the only difference is that it's not synchronous. All right. Alan?
Here.
Bellum?
Here.
Virgil?
Here.
Boyd?
Here.
Brock?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Guzan?
Here.
Chen?
Here.
Kali?
Here.
Council?
Here.
Dyer?
Here.
Elias? Ellison?
Here.
Elman?
Here.
Bassett? Fleming?
Here.
Green?
Here.
Griffin?
Here.
Hadley?
Here.
Hart? Hildebrand?
Here.
Hopper?
Here.
Ivory?
Here.
Jansen?
Here.
Kazim?
Here.
Khan?
Here.
Kimbrell?
Here.
Kosas?
Here.
Akashka Center. Maggiano?
Here.
Matthews?
Right.
Mendes?
Here.
Moon?
Here.
Afoe?
Here.
Peralta?
Here.
Riker?
Here.
Robert?
Here.
Ruffin?
Here.
Schoon?
Here.
Song?
Here.
Shellman?
Here.
Siciliano?
Here.
Swift?
Here.
Talbot?
Here.
Biswinoff?
Here.
Webb?
Here.
Wentz? Yang?
Yeah.
Yarborough? Yay?
Here.
Zot?
Here.
That's great attendance. Thank you.
Thank you all. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to our leadership at their discretion.
Thank you. Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. I'm sure everyone has been following the weather, so I'll address that first because that's always at top of mind when there's any type of emergency situation. So there's a communication that went out here momentarily, I guess around noon, basically just letting the campus community know that we were obviously tracking and aware of the situation. It continues to adjust depending on if you live north of I-20 or south of I-20, apparently, and what the weather forecasts are predicting. But we're aware of it. We have ceased some operations. We had an admission showcase that was scheduled for tomorrow, and we made the decision just due to an abundance of cautious of canceling that event and rescheduling it. We do have an athletic event scheduled tomorrow. The AD has been in conversations with the opposing team because it's a conference game. They want to continue to play it, even though that team will be traveling back to North Carolina. So that game did get moved up to 2 o'clock, if I remember right. and a 4 o'clock game. So there's both a doubleheader for a men and women's basketball game. We've also asked any of our students that are on campus living in the residence hall that if available, they're highly recommended that they, go home just out of, again, abundance of caution. Should we lose power, heat and other things that we would possibly have to consolidate them into non-residential spaces in order to maintain them. But right now we're currently open. We're planning to be open. Obviously things will change. I did put in there, if you had a chance to see it, that on Sunday afternoon, we'll make a decision regarding Monday's operations. Obviously we're all set up online format. And so the provost has assured me that that's at least one option, is that we could just switch modality for that day so that we don't lose a teaching day. I know how important it is. My time in Houston when we had hurricanes, obviously to having communication is always important. You want more communication rather than less. And I know it's important that windows so that you're not wondering when that information is going to drop. Obviously, we're tracking the local school districts, and if they change things, we know that that's going to have impact on those with families and what that might do with regards to Monday. And so, of course, we'll keep all that in advice. Any questions about the weather? None? Okay. I don't think we met or haven't met since we had commencement in the fall. As you know, we had about 1,600 students that walked across the stage. For those of you that were in attendance or were able to be there in the stands, it's much appreciated. I don't know about you, but I got sick over the break. I guess shaking 1,600 hands will eventually do that. So I got to get better with the alcohol or whatnot. But it was truly a great experience to see those students smile and walk across the stage and talk with some of the families prior to the event and certainly afterwards as they got to celebrate that special moment. And for me, I talk about the faculty and staff being the heart and soul of the university, but the students are the blood. And I think sometimes when you have those bad days, maybe not you because you're around students all the time, but for me, when I'm in the office and I have those bad days, it's nice to get out and see the students and talk with them. And I realize okay, this is why we're really here and hear those stories of success. And some dancing sometimes. So again, and then I hope you had a great winter break. I didn't do anything. I hope you were able to say the same. So for about 2 weeks, I just tried to do the least amount of possible. But it's exciting to get back. New spring semester. Obviously, we're about 2 weeks into the semester. And so I'll just give you a quick rundown. Obviously, at the federal level, we're continuing to track, just as we started a new legislative session. Any legislation that's impacting us continues to be lots of flux, but nothing really big to report at that point. State legislation started, the General Assembly just started their new session. Maybe it started January 12th, so however many days that is. There's approximately about 300 bills that we're tracking that impact higher education in some way. And I've said this before, but I just want to reiterate that is that there may end up being 1,000 bills that will eventually get filed in some form or fashion. I caution you just to keep in mind that a lot of bills get filed that never see committee, never see the floor. An individual legislator may file that for a variety of reasons. And so if you have questions about a specific bill, feel free to reach out to our government relations team. They're more than happy to come here and talk about legislation. We don't really do lobbying a whole lot at our local level. We allow the system to do that. But again, if you have those questions, we're certainly happy to keep posted on what's going on with them and then where we're at in the process. I know that there was some testimony on a $10 million bill regarding Georgia's Best. The Speaker of the House is a big opponent or proponent of that. His wife is a former educator, really big in the literacy space, and obviously he represents Georgia Southern, and so they're looking at that, and I think that would be beneficial for both of our schools. And then there's some other stuff that we're going back for, some construction ask, small project, $5 million for no longer TLC, the Perry building, and some other things like that. But and then locally, we talked about commencement just a moment ago. I think you saw an announcement last week with regards to the new VP of Strategic Enrollment Management coming on board starting February 1st. I know we're looking forward to having some stability leadership. Certainly a special thanks to Monica and her team, as well as the provost for taking that into academic affairs. And then as we begin to stabilize the senior leadership thing, we'll begin running the search for general counsel here in the next week or two, and then begin any other vacant positions, start filling that out. Trying to think if there's anything else that that's pretty much. Any questions on those? Yes, sir.
Do we know if the state legislature is going to make any changes with dual enrollment?
So I actually have met with our government relations down in Noonan just prior to coming to this, and so there is an ongoing conversation about dual enrollment. I guess when I speak this, Senator Burns, the question is about kind of this notion of triple paying, so to speak. We pay for students to go through the K-12 pipeline, then we pay for dual enrollment, and then because of Hope and Zell, we pay for that. And so I think there's questions about graduation. What's the 3-year graduation rate for these students? Are they going through at a faster pace? Or schools part of that? So I think some of that is about education, right? I mean, because Hope, and correct me if I'm wrong from the enrollment team, but Hope counts dual enrollment as attended hours. So it's not like you get 127 hours plus that, right? It should be minus that. And so, but I think their issue is we pay for this and these students then go out of state. And so there were some questions there that it's certainly being looked at. Let's say that. And it has been a point. I know that the system office has asked us questions about dual enrollment. I know the provost has given me some preliminary numbers that we know that our graduation rate for West Georgia dual enrollment students who matriculate to West Georgia is about 15% graduation rate. And it's about 8% for non-West Georgia dual enrollments. As you would expect, very few students graduate in 3 years. And so, I mean, you would expect that rate to be very low anyways. But there hasn't been talk about creating like a 90-hour bachelor's degree or something like that yet. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're going to stay warm through all of this coming through. I've got a couple of quick updates. I want to echo the president's comments a bit and then also address some questions that Dylan shared with me. So we'll dive into that. But similar to what the president just said, appreciate all the work that you all do to help us with that 1,600 count of graduates. Every one of those students crosses that stage because of the work that you do, including what we're doing here at Faculty Senate today. So we've got curricular updates and policy updates, principal lecture conversation in a moment. All of that is going to lead to students for years that are commencing and graduating. So kudos for all that. Hopefully you enjoyed that as well as your break. The president mentioned that we had to reschedule the academic showcase. It was going to be tomorrow. And Monica, correct me, but we've got the Admitted Students Day, March 7th. So we're going to piggyback on that. And the message has already gone out to students who would have been here tomorrow to join us for that Admitted Students Day and have a slightly different track for them, for those prospective sophomore and junior students that haven't been admitted yet because they're still a ways out, but we want them to come here. So we're rolling out the red carpet and we're not going to miss. It was 275 students that would have been here tomorrow, and we're not going to miss out on recruiting them. Additionally, we've got another event from admissions on April 22nd, and we're going to roll and give that as an option. As always, if a prospective student wants to visit with their families or others, then they can come by, and you've seen the gym carts rolling around campus. So appreciate all you all do. And when you've got students coming through like that, if it's on a Friday and we're all in red and we're pushing, or whether they come by your lab or your classroom or your office, thank you for taking a moment. It's you, and that's why people are coming here. It could be because of dining, but it's probably because they want to study in your academic areas and work with you specifically based on your expertise. Monica, yeah. April 25th. Sorry, I'm off by 3 days. Thank you. Just by the numbers, spring to spring enrollment, undergrad is up about 8% and grad is up about 14%. Credit hours just under 10. So we continue to grow. And what does that translate to you as faculty? That means this spring, this semester, we are offering 130 sections more than we did a year ago. Assuming about a 30 student per class, right? Looking at credit hour generation. Some classes are larger, some classes are smaller, but cocktail napkin math would suggest we're teaching 130 more sections today than we were a year ago. Because of that, we have added LTI faculty in fall 25 and appreciate you all onboarding them. We have been authorized to flip those LTI faculty into lecturers, senior lecturers, assistant professors, tenure track, clinical faculty. So the model is we hired LTI. Once we see sustained enrollment, then we flip those to, I'm not going to say full-time because LTIs are full-time, but from limited term instructors into more permanent faculty with longevity. Additionally, given our trajectory for the upcoming year, we're looking to add just under 30 more faculty to our roster. You know, if you do some quick math and you say 130 more sections spring than last spring, you can do some quick division on workload and say, yeah, we need more folks here. We're not going to, I mean, we'll flex with part-time and LTIs, but we need to establish a strong and firm base of our core faculty. So we'll be working with deans and you all will be able to, if you've got colleagues or even some of our MA and MS students that are graduating or people that you know in the region, that's one of the best ways to acquire new limited term, or some would refer as postdoc faculty, to join us. My hope is that 2 years from now or a year from now, we'll be talking about flipping those into permanent lines. And we'll just keep doing that as need demands. Beyond personnel, hopefully you heard earlier this year when President joined in August, one of the first things he did was invest more operating dollars and professional development dollars. And I mentioned that at our faculty meeting in August as the kickoff. We're pushing for more and I've worked with your deans. They've got proposals for some one-time funding in FY26, as well as operating into FY27 and beyond. I'm acutely aware, as I've talked with different academic units, that there are needs, and you all, as we grow to this $50 million goal of expenditures in research and scholarship and creative activity, part of that is going to come in operating and monitoring and allocating and accounting for the investment we're already making in our workload. So if you are teaching 3 classes a semester and a big portion of your workload is in scholarship, then we need to account for that. And in our herd reporting, we will be doing a better job of accounting and getting credit for that. Other USG institutions have done that in recent past. And not only has that helped in their numbers in their reporting, it's also been a catalyst for expanding that scholarship and research portfolio at those institutions, and we'll do the same. So look for some good news coming for some one-time this year, as well as into the future. I also want to convey, I met with, I think it was psychology faculty a month or so ago about crossing the fiscal cut. And we're nearing that point where dollars start getting swept and end of year. It's January, but yet we're looking ahead. And if you've got something that you need to do in June, July, even August, and there's an issue of, well, the dollars have been swept out of the college, or we don't have our budget yet, I encourage you to talk with your leadership locally about, you can encumber these things across the fiscal year. And if it's something you need to do to advance your scholarship, go to a conference, present your work, just because we end one fiscal year and start the next, June to July, we shouldn't have this dead time where you can't spend anything. So operationalize that locally, please. But I hope that you're institutionally, there's no reason why you can't do that kind of activity, across the 12 months. Yes. Sure, philosophically, I'm all for it. If you've got needs and you want to earmark things and say, look, we're in process of buying this or expending this, then that's not going to get swept. The challenge we've had is that, June 27th rolls around and then everybody's hitting procurement all at once, and there's no way they can process that stuff. So if you've got needs, you can earmark it and we will not sweep it. But what I don't want to have happen is it just evaporates because, it all just gets backed up and log jammed,
Sure,
either in my approval or at procurement.
sure. In a small program, but a program that like has to buy equipment and props and scenery and things, sometimes there are emergencies.
Sure.
And so we plan for, I think it's a March 1st deadline for sweep, and we plan it, we put it in, but sometimes there's an emergency and there's something that we have to purchase or we have to get or rent or something that happens after that March 1st deadline, and we find we can't do anything.
Appreciate the question. I think it's April 1st. March would be pretty early. So let's go, locally, your college might be implementing earlier, but even if it gets swept into AA, I'm not looking to spend that on me at all, right? We're just trying to not lose dollars and not be efficient. So even once we pass that April 1 deadline, if something comes up at the end of April or mid-May, we're still strategically spending that before the institution sweeps June 1. So if something comes up like that, absolutely, we'll still spend. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The other reason that we do this, 3 months in advance at the end, hopefully you've got a pretty good burn rate throughout. Now, some things you need to spend at the end. I get it, it comes up. But hopefully by now, you know what you need, and you can start doing that strategically rather than at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes there are things that just something breaks.
Yep.
And you.
And please hear me, even after it gets swept to the institutional level, then the EAC leadership can go to at an institutional level and say, oh, we still need this. So there's a multiple phases where you can raise your hand and say, we've got a need. Great question. One of the things that came up that Dylan passed on is, if we look at the big rocks that the president shared in his university address, one of them was regional connections. And what does that really mean for faculty and academic affairs? And so for me, I'd like to clarify, there's probably multiple ways that you can implement that, and we will discover even more as we go through strategic planning. But one that strikes me is our QEP is focused specifically on experiential learning and career readiness. And so academic units, departments, colleges, labs have external advisory boards. You've got nonprofits, organizations, and businesses that you're connected with, and that's a great way to have community impact. It's not just what's our economic impact in our graduates and the economic force of this institution as a whole, it's also how you're connecting with advisory boards and even one-on-one with faculty. You have connections at businesses and nonprofits to say, I've got this great student, and I think that you should let them shadow you, or they've worked in my lab, and you should really give them an internship, and being that conduit for students. So the QEP is a grassroots. It's not a top-down, which is exactly why we have our QEP representatives across the institution. And in so doing, I think that each of you have these connections and you're building bridges for your students to launch their careers. Beyond that, we've got R&D and consulting services that you can individually do as part of your scholarship. But if you're teaching an upper level class and you want to reach out to a business and say, what's a project that you'd love to get to, you just never have enough time? Can we be your R&D partner? And pitch us this idea. We just had a great collaboration with Caliber One, and they pitched a project for an interdisciplinary team with a number of students across different disciplines that worked with them and came up with recommendations that Caliber One is now implementing. So if you've not done that before, or if that's something you don't know how to get that going, then please reach out to a QEP champion. to me, to Raja in the Stone Center. A number of people can assist with that. Even Brian, I saw you come in, right? So Orst can assist with that. But we've got a great opportunity through career services, internships, course R&D, through your advisory boards to really lean into that. And we should be an economic engine for the region, not only in our graduates who are going to be working with these companies, but while they're here, having one foot as students and one foot trying to build their careers as a way of supporting and hopefully generating some funds back to your endowments and to your departments. Another thing that's come up is the syllabus. And why do we need to publish this so early? We've had a lot of conversations around this. The USG policy has been updated. I want to give you some dates just so you're aware. The schedule of classes goes live on February 2nd. Ava just sent out something yesterday about the schedules themselves due on the 26th, which is next week. And then the syllabi due a month later on 2 months later on March 16th. So that has been extended a bit. But just to be clear, we're not waiting until July or even August to meet that USG expectation, because as soon as students can see which classes are being offered, they should be able to also click through and see that syllabus and say, what's the difference between this section of this class and the other section? And maybe the way you're teaching or the resources you're using in one section over another might be more appealing to them and how they learn best. It does not preclude us from making updates and edits. So I shared with Provost Council some comments that Ashwani put out either yesterday or earlier today around, yes, the policy requires these particular elements and we're leaning into that. It doesn't prevent you from updating or even using a master syllabus for a course that has multiple sections each semester. So in an ideal world, the faculty would come together and say, for this class, here's what this is about. You do that when you propose courses, which we've got on our agenda today, as well as when you propose programs, and then update those periodically, publish those, and then edit them as they go. To Ashwani's point, though, what we publish needs to be what's implemented. So if you edit that along the way, just put the new one out there, connected through banner, and let us know the updates. Yes, it's early, but the goal is full transparency, so students know what they're signing up for. And I can't say this enough, it certainly does not prevent edits and updates, even up until when the class begins. Because I know that you're continually improving classes. You're going to finish something this semester and realize, oh, for fall, I really should add this and improve that class. It doesn't prevent that at all. So I hope that you'll do that. A couple other questions. I know we've got a full agenda. Workload and annual evaluations. A question was asked, oh, so we're changing workload. We're not. We're using the faculty handbook and that 4.4 teaching standard. And part of my ask to the deans, and I've been saying this for a few years, at Faculty Senate Executive Committee last week, I said, if this has been opaque, I'll own that. But let's be clear that that standard is totality of work. How you divvy that up among your teaching, your service, and your scholarship should be proactive as part of the annual evaluation. So as you're filling that out and as chairs and directors are reviewing that, that last section of that cover letter, it's what did you say you're going to do? What did you do? Celebrate that. And then what are you projecting in the upcoming year? If you say, based on my scholarship and my research productivity, I should be teaching 3 classes in the fall and the spring, that's evaluated, you've got strong research outcomes, fantastic, nothing changes. If you'd rather be more of a teaching focus and your scholarship is still there, but it's not a 3X, it's within a 4.4 load by the handbook, then those goals should be articulated in a way that the chair or the director can say, yes, I see what you're projecting, and you'll be teaching 4 in the fall and 4 in the spring, and then doing scholarship and service at these levels. If you say, I can go after X millions of dollars in scholarship and creative activity and research, and I should get a 1-1, then negotiate that, and then we'll review, and then we're off to the races. So there's no change in policy here. The only ask that I'm echoing from before and perhaps clarifying is that third section of your annual evaluation letter is we need more clarity of what you're proposing. And as part of the P&T process this cycle and last year's, I've seen some of these sections and there's not a lot of detail there. So if it's just I'm going to continue my research agenda, then that's problematic for a number of reasons. It doesn't allow us to earmark funds for whatever conferences you might be wanting to attend, but it also doesn't allow us to report accurately on the herd report of these many millions of dollars and tens of thousands of hours that faculty are dedicating to scholarship, creative activity, and research that we can account for. So that's the purpose of this. Yes.
The flexibility in the 1-1 to 5-5,
Mhm.
that's exciting. I wonder if what the guidelines have been in terms of the number and the type of flexibility that the deans have
Mhm.
in terms of a 1-1 or a 2-1. I
Yep.
mean, have you given them
I'll say in every conversation I've had with deans and at provost council, I have always used those hyperbolic examples. So 1-1 has always been on the table. It's atypical, but it's a possibility. You could do a 0-3, right? And that's, you've heard me talk about research leave, and I hate the word leave because it's not, it's adjusted workload. So if you've got all of this scholarship or all of this service that you can be doing in a semester, that's permitted by policy as well.
So they haven't been given a quota in terms of, the number of courses they can reassign.
It would be really hard if a dean came to me and said, of all of my 100 faculty in my college, all of them are going to be on a 1-1. It'd be tough to backfill that. Now, if they had brought in $20 million in grants, great, we can pull that off. So there's no number. The only number that I've quoted is a general guideline. If you're on a 9-month contract, then full-time would be about 1,500 hours a year, right? And so if each segment of your workload, we've got 10 segments, scholarship, service, and teaching. And if you're on a 3-3, or that would be 60% of your workload. So you can multiply each one of those units by about 150, plus or minus. So if you're on a 3-3 teaching load and 30% of your workload is scholarship, then across the year, you should be about doing 450 hours of research, scholarship, and creative activity. Now, are we going to have you clock in, punch in, and now what were you doing for that hour? Right. Part of that is reading and absorbing content. So the accountability of that, we can get pretty close, but I'm not interested in bean counting. It's just a general guideline, but there's no minimum or maximum that's been established. My ask of the deans is have these conversations, give me a general guide of where you all are landing, and let's have that conversation, because if everybody is, on a 5-5 or a 4-5, that's lecture, instructor. So what are you doing across your college or school that's going to get us to these high expectations we have in scholarship? And then the other message is we've got to account for it. So if someone in their cover letter in the annual review leaves that blank or just has one sentence of I'm going to keep doing cool stuff, it's not enough there. Go back and put something there that we can point to and say, yes, this is what they were doing. Might it change? Perhaps, but at least you're creating a target. And you say, I want to go to this conference, I want to pub in this journal, and I'm going to mentor these grad students. Great. If that changes, okay. It's a target. It gives us something to work with. Does that answer the question?
I think so. I just want to account for what it appears to be the very low number of, and again, I said appears, I don't have number of reassigned time that would allow people to do some of the work that we're talking about.
Let's solve that locally, right? So if there's an area where there's too much time and not enough output or accountability, that's a problem. On the flip side, if it's all teaching and no breathing room for scholarship, then you're not going to be able to get to these aspirations that we have as a comprehensive institution, where part of that mission is scholarship and research. And it's a moving target. We're not going to nail this 100% correct. But for the record, and so everyone, please share this message. It's negotiating and it's establishing agenda. And then what are people committing to? It goes both ways. Question on this? Yes.
Thought very much related to Stacy's comment. I think, addressing these things locally it makes the most sense, right? Not everybody has to directly email you. You have a lot of things you're managing. That'll be insane. But at some point, I think faculty feel that they don't have options. Like they feel that they have a justified, reassigned time case. And then if that's not agreed upon by their supervisor, what options do they have so that this can be something that gets kind of equitably decided among different academic units? There may be a policy for that, but I think it would be helpful to hear you say maybe what some faculty could do.
So there's ombuds, there's formal grievance, and then, yes, we're all busy, but anyone that connects with me, I'll sit down confidentially with you and have that discussion. I can't speak to the expertise of different areas, right? So what is geo or what is theater or what, I can have a general sense of that, but I have to also respect the chair, the director, the dean, in having more knowledge of that area. I'll also pitch out at previous institutions, and something I would ask Faculty Senate to take up from a policy perspective. Right now, the policy just talks about workload in general. There's not how long. So one of the criticisms, and I think it's valid, is, and I'm not interested in people spending a whole, huge amount of their time annually justifying their workload of, look, I should have some research and some teaching. Do I really need to go about this every year? Other places will establish that for a 3-year period. And as long as you're making marks, then you continue under that workload. So I'm open to that conversation. If we want to update and say every 3 years, you say, I'm on a teaching focus, or I'm on a service focused in an administrative role, or I'm on a research focus. And obviously annual reviews, if you just don't do anything, then you adjust, right? There's already checks and balances built in there. But from a recourse perspective, we have mechanisms to debate that. And I'm happy to chat confidentially. Because ultimately, we've got great folks, we've got expertise, and this isn't a gotcha or a Orwellian look over your shoulder. We need the accountability from herd reporting, and we also have public scrutiny that I'm interested in getting ahead of that. And we've got great work. So don't hear this as, oh, everybody's on a 4-4 and there's no room for scholarship. That's not it. We need to document and project and then support the argument that people have for what they're doing. Yes.
So I'm going to give an example that I'm dealing with right now. And I would call it pertains to cap creep is what I would say it. So I have a faculty member, I've been starting to work on the annual evals, and she teaches in the MPA program, our graduate program. 3 years ago, our courses were 15. Then as we got more students, we increased our cap to 20, then we increased our cap to 25. And the fall and spring of this year, she'll have 150 grad students between. So 3 years ago, that would be the equivalent of 10 sections of MPA. Beyond that, she taught 2 American government Monday Friday courses, and then she advises student clubs. She's on multiple committees, and she published book chapter and an article this year. So in my view, when I look at her record, even though she's a 3.3, she's almost a de facto 5.5. And one of the biggest reasons is, as the program has grown, we're not getting resources and faculty to try to control for how big our program is getting. So I see this, and it's not just with her, as I go into others, I have huge courses. So some of the folks that I have are on a 3.3, but they're de facto 4.4 or even 5.5 as tenured faculty. So, and I blame myself for putting them into this position as the chair, and I'm looking at, damn, I'm overworking. But my alternative is, if I don't get resources with faculty to fill it in, then I lose student credit hour production, and then that's a problem. So I feel caught as a chair in this situation as our program.
I think there's 2 pieces to that. Number one, I appreciate you bringing up credits and enrollment, because we can all be on a 4.4 and have 3 students in each section, right?
Right.
So let's look at the totality of contribution. It's not just how many sections, it's also how many students. And there should be a distinction between grad and undergrad, and special topics and independent study, and even doctoral, right? So happy to dive deeper into that. I think that's something that the Faculty Senate could take up and say, how do we view this? There are other USG institutions that actually set typical guidelines of what is our target enrollment. And even beyond the USG, at a national level, institutions establish strategic goals of how many classes are below 20 students. I mean, you get different kind of learning. You know, sometimes it works when you've got 100 students in a class. Sometimes you absolutely don't want that. So what kind of experience are we trying to create? And then there's also disciplinary pros and cons of small and larger sections, right? So I think that's something that can take up. But then as far as resources go, I'm going to go back to 20 additional faculty this past August and another 28 or so that we're adding. And then if there's local need in the MPA or in DCEPs beyond, I'd say, let's, you and me and Karen or whoever needs to get in the room and say, here's what we've got. We need more gas in the tank if this engine's going to keep running here. Like PSA, fill up your gas tanks. Yeah. Cold weather, you need to, even if you're not driving, you need to be able to have some heat in a crisis, right? So appreciate you raising that. And it's not just number of classes, it's also number of students. So again, I would ask, you know, a subcommittee of the Faculty Senate, look at that. What's our breakdown? I'm happy for IEA to work with you and look at where we are. What's the histogram breakdown by section, by discipline, and where do we need to do better? The good thing is you're talking about growth and serving more. It's better than the alternative, but it's still an issue. And if we need more faculty, if we need more resources, then I'm committed to advocating for that and making sure we get what we need. Thank you. Yes.
Could you tell us more about the public scrutiny you mentioned?
Just in general, right? I don't know anything particular. I'm not saying that there's somebody that's asking for data, but just this cultural questioning, really of authority in general, but also specifically what's the value of higher education and where are people spending time? Right. So my wife has joked for decades of, oh, when are we going to get that cushy professor lifestyle everybody talks about, right? There's this perception of, oh, you're 9 months, you have your summers off. And I'm not going to ask for raise of hands, but I'd say you all are probably some of the hardest working folks in a 100-mile region, right? So, I mean, we're here, we're dedicated, whether or not, we have to tell that story. We have to tell our story and let people know, here are all the great things that we're doing. So specifically, and I'm going to get to this in a moment, Brian, so I'm going to call on you in a second, but Orchid ID and accounting for, I'm not interested, and I mentioned this to Faculty Senate Executive Committee, I'm not interested in adding yet another system that people have to key stuff into, but how do we create a better inventory more publicly about the expertise and the work of our faculty? All of their creations, all of their scholarship, all of the mentorship, so that it's easily reported. And we've got an annual report coming out of ORS that not only shows pie charts and graphs of expenditures and growth, but then also a massive list of citations and things that faculty are doing. We need to do that and tell that story and get ahead of, why should I go to college? What's the ROI? We believe in this and we know that it is there. We need to just get ahead of any criticism that are coming. And they're already here. I'm just leaning into that because I'm sure you can pull up social media or you can pull up news and within 5 seconds find an article that talks about why you should or you shouldn't go to college or what's broken in higher ed, right? I mean, go to Chronicle, go to Inside Higher Ed. Yes, we have our challenges, but this is still a great place to transform people's lives. We believe in this and it absolutely is the case. And thanks for asking. I'm going to shift gears for a bit and talk about scholarships. So Brian, I know that we've talked about creating this research council. I know it's very nascent, but how do we lean towards and get towards that 50 million in 5? What investments do we need to make? One-time instrumentation, ongoing support, workload. How do we account for? What does it mean in scholarship, creative activity, and research in this area versus that area? What is the impact factor that we would expect in? I think we've got a lot of expertise spread out, but this is an opportunity to come together collectively and say, what's our agenda holistically as an institution? So can you take just a minute, Brian, and talk about this research council?
So,
And it, Brian Mosher, I know most of you here, really thankful that the provost has supported this idea. It happens in multiple institutions, both comprehensives, but larger as well. And so the idea of a research council would let us do a number of things. It would be a conglomerate of faculty, perhaps research deans, yet to be determined, but it will do multiple things. For example, just today, I was meeting with a faculty member of Richards College of Business, a new faculty member, and he is very interested and has done work with evaluation of SNAP education programs in K-12. New faculty member. I just happened to have worked with Health Empowers and their partner on what was a huge grant that we had years ago. I had no idea that he has already done evaluation of SNAP ed programs and how that's led to success in education programs. And we don't have a mechanism on our campus right now to where we have the opportunity to funnel up ideas with a group of people that then can disseminate that information. So having a research council or a council of scholarship and creative activities is something that we just don't have access to. So that would be one. Another one would be what actually counts as research expenditure. And so many of our colleagues and the provost has just mentioned this. Upwards of 75% of their research expenditure happens from internally funded research. So faculty time, travel to conferences, equipment that's purchased, supplies that are purchased, graduate assistantships, tuition of graduate assistantships, all of these things, if we account for them correctly, it doesn't need to be our main source. It might not be at 75% for us, but that's a good conversation to have with everyone involved in what counts for research and scholarship at our institution, and how are we accounting for that fiscally so we can demonstrate the work that we're doing. This past year, we have accounted for just our research expenditures of external grants, have a record year in external grants of $5 million. And so that is what has been awarded year over year, but we accounted for $737,000 of research expenditures. Our counterparts are upwards of 40, 50 million. 75% of which is internally funded. So I'm not saying we need to go 70, you all tell me, I don't think we need to go to 75%, but we're doing things that we're not saying, we're not telling our story as accurately as we can. In that, it is important that when we say that we are doing things that we're actually doing, right? And so Orchid ID, and how many, just to show, who has an Orchid account? It's many of you do. So Orchid ID, you have your individual account, that's great, like a LinkedIn account, you can travel to multiple institutions that you have, and you put the information.
Don't leave. He's not encouraging you to leave. We need you here.
But we're going to be investing in at a very nominal cost. We'll be investing in having an Orchid institutional ID. So that way we can start to gather that information and share that information so we can see what researchers are doing here at the University of Michigan. So more to come on that, but all of these things are important. I'm happy to take some questions.
Yeah, I'll open it up, but more info to come. I just wanted to let you all know that this is early conversation, and I've connected Brian to Faculty Senate to say, what should this look like? And what kind of representation do we have on it? One more item. I'm good at like putting people on the spot. So David, if I can, will you take just a moment to talk about momentum? What's coming up, not only locally and the USG momentum, but then the summit that we're hosting.
David Newton, in the provost office, and we are, the USG has for over a decade now, had something called USG Momentum, which is our student success initiative, an opportunity for all the institutions to get together, talk about student success and how we can improve the experience of our students in the classroom and in other ways as well. The USG has a virtual summit that starts actually on Monday. It's free to register for that. We put the link in the registration link in the provost newsletter, so you can find that. Please share that with your colleagues. It's free and open to faculty and staff. They'll be doing 2 virtual sessions every day for the next 2 weeks. You don't have to attend all of them, But if you look at their schedule, there's some really interesting things out there.
Great content.
The West Georgia is actually going to be presenting on Monday afternoon on some of the really innovative work that's been going on in general education. But there are lots of other sessions that have to do with all aspects of students' academic experience and life on campus, including AI. And then Dr. Hart's going to be doing a session with some others across the UWG on AI, and so we're looking forward to that one as well. Then a little later, we'll start our campus planning session. We'll be getting together about 35 folks from across campus to kind of do some planning for our own momentum planning for the coming year. Lots of good things have come out of that over the last number of years that have really helped us with our student success. And then I'm really excited that this year, the University System of Georgia's momentum gathering, where we bring together teams from across the system, is actually going to be here at the University of West Georgia later in February. So we're really excited about that. Grateful to get to host that opportunity.
Yeah, it's good visibility. We get a lot of affirmation from the system about the work that we're doing. So all good things. Dylan's giving me the eye. I know you've got agenda, so I'll take a couple of questions if we haven't covered anything that's hot topic, please.
I take less than a minute. I have a comment and then a request. I'm excited about the possibility that faculty members can perhaps have a 2-2 or a 1-1 load to do scholarship and to go for big dollar grants, which sometimes take 2 or 3 months to put together. Now, in the natural sciences, the programs are generally small and there is a fairly high level of specialization. So if an individual were to not teach a certain course, one would have to find a PhD in broad daylight to teach that course, sometimes to an audience of 10, sometimes to a larger audience. Now, here's the request, and my request to both the provost, and I see that the Dean of Perry College is also here, is to have a pool of money set aside for qualified part-timers who can slide into certain courses seamlessly. And one might have to pay them a little bit more so that they can teach during broad daylight. And no, I'm not going to ask you for a dollar amount or Dean Butler for a dollar amount, but a request, a possibility of having a reduced load without having simultaneous allocation of part-time resources will not take us very far. And thank you for listening to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. In my former life as dean, I would send people to Arlington to meet with NSF directors just to make sure there's stronger connection and that they could hear directly from to strengthen their proposals. So if you want to do that, whether it's NEA, NEH, NSF, whatever the funding agency is, whatever that looks like for your discipline, here's what we need to do to strengthen our ability to get these dollars. I am very happy to hear those ideas and put resources towards it. And then specifically, if you say, we're going to go after this 6, 7, big 6 or 7-figure proposal, and it's going to take some time and resources. You tell me what you need. We'll look at the pros and cons and the expected ROI on that. And then, we've got to place our bets. We've got to invest in areas if we're going to hit these aspirational targets. So whatever that means in your disciplines, and please share this with your colleagues. The president and I and the deans, I'll speak for them because yes, I've charged them with this. What do you need to pull off these great things? It's not a, what do we have? What can we do with it? It's what could we do and what do we need to get there? So let's focus on that latter. Great question. Yes.
Just to get a little more perspective on the changes with program assessment that will accompany the removal of tracks. I'm not saying that right, probably, but
removal of tracks.
Sidetracks.
Thank you. Yes.
So there's a lot of.
I heard D tracks.
Yeah, I said it.
Got you. Gotcha.
There's a lot of people knowledge bound up in that system.
Yep.
And I'm getting a lot of questions about what's going to replace it, and I don't know. However, we store that information needs to be conducive to further assessment in later years. So I was just wondering if you can get a little bit of information on, first of all, why that was sunset or removed or whatnot, and then separately, what are we going to do about it?
Sure. A couple of reasons to move beyond Sidetracks. One, it was redundant. and we were having people key this stuff in, but it was also recorded elsewhere. Second, there were cost escalators, and even though I'm computer science, I don't believe computing and systems are a silver bullet. Often they get their hooks in you and it's, oh yeah, this will be great. And then 5 years later, you're spending 10x and it still doesn't do what you want it to do. So we did an assessment across and I talked with deans, and if you've got a different story and you say, no, we absolutely need to keep this, let's talk. But what I heard was we've got OneDrive and we've got shared folders and SharePoint, I was going to say Exchange, right? We've got the SharePoint system that we can record our meetings, our continuous improvement, our data in this, and from a SAC COC reaffirmation and accreditation documentation, we can pull from that. So for example, in ABET under engineering and computing, you have to show course syllabi, sample projects and student work, assignments, and then some kind of assessment of student learning outcomes as one of the criteria. And we can absolutely do that within Zytrack, but we don't have to have it. You can record those things independently in folders by year, academic semester, course assignment, and so forth. So I'm open if you all feel otherwise, but what I heard unanimously was this is redundant from what we're already archiving and doing. So why are we having to key it in twice? And so we've got Zytracks through, anyone know better?
June.
In June, thank you. And we can export all of that. We're not going to lose any of that. And so we'll archive it and save it. If there's a follow-up or you want to dive deeper into that on specific
Maybe
program.
that others are more familiar with the specifics of how that data is managed and can speak to it. I don't have those specifics now, but if anybody can add anything or have a question.
Well, I was gonna ask if you're gonna be holding those down and we'll have access to it.
Yes, in fact, it's all local, right? So you all should be storing syllabi. I mean, we got the syllabi and concourse and so forth, and within D2L, student performance data, which we can pull those reports, but meeting notes, curricular updates, I mean, faculty senate, UPC, GPC, all of that's recorded.
So same type of assessment that we do with Zytracks, or will that be done then by IEA and for the assessment?
The assessment, program assessment that you were doing is independent of the vehicle by which you do it. So you can still measure your learning outcomes on a per course basis. You can look at program and objectives just as you always have. How you record that?
No, I totally understand that, but are we still going to be in November and for January, since it was moved to January this year? Will we still be doing something like that, or is that going to just be sent to us to have that information?
You have periodic program evaluation. I might be missing.
The assessment of the PLAs are program.
Yes, and so that continues. I mean, that's part of program viability.
Right.
That's with the mechanism for submitting it.
So we're still going to be submitting something like that?
In this case, submission means you've generated these documents, you've had those conversations as faculty, and then you can share that folder of all the materials. It's a simple right click share, and that's all that's needed. Good questions. So I'm going to let you all, yep, one more. You know the PLOs, you know course outcomes.
We lost our main person. We're just sort of learning as we're going right now.
So let's follow up individually. In my mind, it's a local option, and you just have to be able to demonstrate that. There's no form that we're using. Yes.
One quick question, just for clarity, for faculty teaching honor sections or courses. I think previously the language was those would count. And it seems like there may still be some confusion that they don't actually count.
Help me understand, honors counting for the discipline or for the workload? They should count for both. So if you're teaching an honor section, Are you teaching an XIDS? That shows up on two places. One, it's credit hour by prefix. So if it's an honors English, then it'll show up under English. If it's an XIDS, it'll show up under that. But it also shows up on your individual work. So if you're teaching an honors section, fantastic. In fact, I think if Karen were here, or if she's online, if we had online, she'd be jumping up and down. We need more honors sections. And yes, they're smaller. And you might think, oh, that's hurting credit production. It's not. We'll backfill, right? If you're doing grants, we'll backfill. So you get, the discipline gets credit and you as an individual get credit. And if that's not happening, please let me know, because it should be. And that question's come up in here many, many times. So you should be getting credit. Thanks. Please reach out if you've got any questions. Hope you'll stay safe and warm. And we'll let you know when we know anything. Thank you. Dylan, thank you.
All right, thank you both. So a couple updates before we dive in. The one that's closest to my heart is we really need to start working on a chair elect for this group. I need a replacement. My term ends at the end of this semester. So a couple asks. If you know for sure that you're interested and you want to do this, number one, why don't I already know that information? But more to the point, please let Laura and I know. If you're kind of on the fence, if you're thinking about it, talk to me. I'm really, really happy to have a conversation with you about really what the deal is and see if it's something you're interested in. Folks of you, by our policies, you have to have been on the Senate at least within the past 3 years. So those of you in this room, you are the pool that would be most applicable for this conversation. So please think about it. I do think it's important that whoever does this actually wants to do it and wants to do it well. But there are many of you who are capable of doing that. So please have a conversation with me if that's of interest to you. I will give a note, not to put, I'm not going to ask you to say anything, but not put the rules committee and them on the spot. But we have had conversations that some of our policies about the criteria that go into who's eligible to run for Senate chair, term limits, things like that. We're due to take a look at that. So if you have any thoughts about that, our rules committee is going to be diving in and taking a look at those policies. The next time we can deal with that is the general faculty meeting. So current policies will remain in effect right now. Anybody have any questions about that? We do need to deal with it. We kicked the can last year, so let me deal with this year. All right. Also, just a heads up, if you look at the calendar, our Senate calendar for the next couple of weeks is a little weird. We're compressed. That's just an availability thing. There's a lot of schedules that we manage to get these things on our calendars. So in 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing this again. We have an executive committee meeting this time next week. And then we get a nice little break. So we kind of pay for it now, and then we get our own little break between this. Today, we're going to have a conversation about the economic impact after we get through our action items. But I want to prime you to spend, because it only is 2 weeks away, have a conversation with your colleagues, like we're not already doing this anyways, but about AI. Because February 6th, our next meeting, we are going to have one of our colleagues who's a subject matter expert on AI in the classroom come give us a presentation, a brief presentation on it to prime us to be able to hopefully have a robust conversation about how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to approach this? What are the implications? What do we need to be doing that we're not doing? So start having that conversation now with your colleagues. Do any committee chairs have anything that they want to bring up that's not on the agenda? Any announcements? All right, in that case, we'll go ahead and start with our agenda for our action items. So we have UPC.
UPC approved 10 proposals, and I have not received any questions. Are there any now? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the proposals, can you raise your hand, please? Thank you. Oh, sorry. Any nay?
Opposed or
Any opposed? Any noes?
all right, awesome. So we have GPC is next on the agenda. So
Yeah, so we submitted our slate of items from GPC. I also received their questions in advance. I'm taking it now, if any. Okay. So seeing none, all in favor of GPC's slate of action items? Please raise your hand. And any opposed? Or any person? Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have an action item from the Faculty Affairs Committee. So if Levi, if you want to come on down, and I'm gonna go ahead and I can pull up the addendum in a minute, but I do want to give you a chance to read. So the consent agenda is most applicable to our curricular items. Changes that are outside of the curriculum committee will be a little bit more traditional. We'll give everybody a chance to read the rationale. And then I'll pull up. I can pull up the addendum if you like, but the rationale has a lot of. Hopefully you've already looked at this. I'll hand the floor over to Levi if he wants to make any comments.
Basically, in summary, this proposal provides a more equitable and systematic progression for non-tenure track faculty. So they'll progress along the track of senior lecturer to principal lecturer positions. So since we submitted this, we've not had any questions. If anybody has any questions here, or comments, you're welcome.
As a practical matter, the best way to understand this is it creates the principal lecturer rank at the University of West Georgia.
It clarifies the senior lecturer position and creates the principal one.
Principal lecturer and senior.
There is a lecturer position, there is a senior lecturer clarifying it, and then we added a principal lecturer position.
Questions or discussion? You can call the question.
All in favor, raise up your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Levi.
I have a point of privilege.
Please.
I want to commend the group for taking this on and for you all to do this. It's important that we recognize people, and I think this is a phenomenal addition at UWG. It's part of USG policy. I'm really glad to see that we're doing this. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay. So what we're gonna do now is just move on to conversation about, so as a Senate, we've been moving through some of the president's priorities for long-term strategic growth at UWG. We've talked about graduation rate, we've talked about research, so now I think the real focus needs to be on regional economic alignment, being aligned with our community. So you all received a version of this by email from me. These are just some of the questions that I think we can think about faculty perspective on. So I think what we're gonna do is, I want to prime the pump a little bit. So let's take maybe 5 to 10 questions, or 5 to 10 minutes. We're gonna give Laura's fingers a break. And have conversations amongst yourselves. What are your programs doing in terms of plugging in with the community, finding out what those community needs are? Have you made program changes in response to some community needs that you learned about? What are you doing for internships? What are you doing on the QEP? Let's cross-pollinate amongst ourselves a little bit. And then we will come back as a Senate and share some of those ideas out so they can be in the minutes, they can be in the recording, and we can ultimately pass those things on up the chain to our leaders. So 5 to 10 minutes, talk amongst yourselves, and I'll reconvene.
Take it off. I think I need to be, I'm gonna go meet with CEO, advocate for the resource. With, one of the items that you can see was given the Gen Council's deadline, I'm more of the work to quickly get this up. want to put it for the president. And if we can do that pretty rapidly, then I think it's do it in June. Yeah, and I understand life and timing, and so I'll let you know that item in particular, we can move on. What I'm trying to avoid is missing the spring meetings and then it flows into and then. So.
But also, you guys. I think that is one of the that's their business between like and a lot of that. It's like hey, Yeah, my students have gone on graduate. State loans and are job. Seems like that's absolutely experience. I would just, really concerned yesterday. Now, there's their own sense of data. And that's been sad. Space, it's not always like the first thing, like. When you're just parking, I'm saying, it's money or working.
All right, so I think it's been long enough. We can start to reconvene.
That like fair.
Good conversation, but let's all come back together so we can make sure that we get some of our best ideas into the minutes. And they can be part of our records, so you can share them out. I'll go ahead and break the ice and I'll talk about some of the things that my group discussed. Talking about some of the ways that we tend to plug in with the community. Tends to be a lot more organic than formal. So a lot of us, when we reach out to community partners, it isn't necessarily like me as a political scientist, I'm not necessarily reaching out to some government affairs person over at Southwide or something. Usually it's a former student. Or some type of connection that we have that way. So the way my brain always worked, trying to make this the type of place I want to have a 20, 30-year-long career, that gets a lot easier. The longer you've been here, it gets a lot easier to have those connections because you have more students out there doing amazing things in the community that you can go and call on to help current students. So to me, it's always like, that's another argument. Let's make sure this is a place where people want to stick around for 30 years. That's 30 years worth of community connections they can draw on for current students. What'd y'all think about? Please.
We talked about alumni board, much of what you're trying, which allows programs to get more of a grasp of their alumni, even those that maybe were here before. We talked about Atlanta. Some of us have showcases in Atlanta at various places to connect students with industry people. That's theater does that. We talked about you teach, and guys help me with this, in that loss of faculty in education, teaching, like math education or science education, and not having help with those who have education programs. One person is going on all of these visits and how difficult that is. And we talked about sort of some mixed messaging and community engagement, but then some programs are doing community engagement within Carrollton, but and making money on it, but it can take it away. And so I think part of that, so something in common with those two things is the sort of mixed messaging of community engagement versus you can't do this anymore.
This is a good point. So we need to make sure we're all playing off the same sheet.
So one of the things that we've done at DCEPS is to try to build deliberate connections with practitioners who are in kind of high impact areas to have them come to campus and teach courses for us. So for instance, the chief financial officer for the Department of Labor is teaching a budgeting course. The division director of the Georgia Capitol Defender, he's done it for years. So he deals with death penalty cases, is teaching a course on death penalty. We have the city manager, Douglasville, teaching a course on local government. So this allows those in the community who want to give back the opportunity to engage with our students. It also allows our students, or those in particular who want to get into the community, and access and points of connection to allow them to get jobs now back in the community. So, and then it helps us with internships, because whenever these folks come to us and they say, hey, do you need interns? Like, yes, absolutely. So working to have practitioners teach courses helps us get students placed in the community. The second thing that our MPA program does really well, which I think we need to do at our undergraduate level, we have an advisory board, and the advisory board really gives us the ideas of what we need to be focusing on. I think that is something that both the criminology program and the political science program have benefited from creating at the undergraduate level. So those are
So strategically using adjunct positions and those community advisory board, very similar to what we talked about, but it's essentially a different name for the.
Yeah, to follow up on this idea, I was actually interviewing Anthony about this. He was telling me all of this. I already knew, but in any case, we do run into barriers, and I think all of you who want to hire people, practitioners, or real experts in what they do, whatever endeavors to do. One problem we run into is that we pay very, very, very low. We don't pay enough. And I think that's a significant barrier. We really cannot pay people $3,000 for coming to teach. I think we're now at $3,600. That's just barely covers that. So I think that if we really want more community engagement, more impact, I think we definitely need to spend in order to do that. The other thing is to also follow up on what Anthony was saying in terms of the community board, which is made up of former graduate students who are now in the community, et cetera. And it's actually large. In the director of the MBA program gets them together on a regular basis, asks the same questions about what do you guys see that you need in your jobs, so that we can then try to help our students build those kinds of skills. One thing that I think it's really that we are not doing, and I think would be a great idea to do at the undergraduate level, is we do something similar. And on the graduate advisory board, former students who graduated, then bring them back to campus and talk to them about what do you know, what are you doing, that sort of thing. And I think it may be a good idea collectively, if all departments or anybody who has those boards, to have one conference where everybody brings their advisory board all at once and get all of these people talking to each other. And then what kind of internships do you have? Bring students and get the students talk to those folks too. Because I think if we're going to have some kind of impact, we got to be the nexus that it allows people to actually connect. And we have to, again, but that also requires time, effort, service, obviously, and then the investment of the money to actually put together an event for a full day where people can come together. So we need a lot. It's just that we need to start also thinking about what it would require.
That's good. So I just to make sure we're clear. Not only are we paying what we need to be paying for our adjuncts, which you all know the answer to that question. But also incentive. That's another thing my group talked about is we need to make sure that we have an incentive, professional incentive structure in place that is able to reward the community engagement that is a strategic priority for us. So whatever that looks like, whether that's time we're investing in, I mean, these community advisory boards don't set themselves up, right? So time we're investing in doing that, how are we benefiting from that professionally or doing internships? I'm internship coordinator for my program. That's just extra service that we do. So should it be? So those are all, that's really all important conversations to have. Let's see if anybody else. Yes.
So we talked about, some of those barriers very similar and also that connection, such as the industry that's here in our community going to Georgia Tech, which is further away, but how do we get them on campus to see what the students are doing? How do we promote UWG as the location, the place to go, like getting the students exposed to them so that they're like, we want your students for internships, or do you have folks that are awesome graduating we can hire? I know in art education, I do all the stuff myself, so I do have teachers, that's the power of the students being with those teachers, seeing what they can do, but also to the barrier of instrumentation, funding. So Georgia Tech has more than we have, South Florida will go there, but how can we develop that infrastructure, those hard kind of machinery things we need that the talent here needs so that they'll want to partner with us on R&D, or even a one-off, like you mentioned, like this testing something coming over. It's like, let's test this out together. Let's get your students getting some real time, and then that unofficial connection where they might say, "Hey, remember that student? Are they looking for an internship?" So that was the bulk of our conversation.
And we also came up with a suggestion that we have a wonderful showcase each year in April, Scholars Day, where we have maybe 50 to 70 presentations, both oral and poster. And I think it would be nice to invite some of the potential industrial partners to that event so that they can walk around and interact with the students. And I think something might come out of that as well.
That's a good idea. Yeah, absolutely. Inviting the local community leaders, industry, et cetera, to come to that. And not just that, I'm sure there may be other things that would be worth inviting, but that's a great one. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Thank you all. So the president has talked about investing in these priorities. Specifically, usually he applies that to research, achieving those research objectives. It sounds like he needs to clearly hear that there's investments that can be made to help further this pillar as well. What else we have?
In geology and geography, for over a decade now, they've hosted a career night every spring. We invite usually several, maybe up to 10 alumni to come back, and it's really formal. And the students that choose to come can just have one-on-one conversations or group conversations with the alumni there. So that's always been really productive. And then from that, in the last 3 or 4 years, a more established alumni group developed. And then also we've figured out how to make a foundations account that our alumni are actively donating to for opportunities where we can actually say, hey, let's now host, we go out in the field, it's for whimsy and fun, but let's do like a 2-day field trip with alumni and students. And that's just been like an awesome way to engage with the alumni and the people who want to keep giving back to the program. So it creates these opportunities for the students to connect with them in a comfortable setting.
Thank you. And another way to get the alums on campus and plugged in.
Well, you can do it virtually too, right? I mean, we had 2 students. In theater, we do company meetings every other week where the majors gather and we just give announcements, or sometimes we have workshops. And we had 2 alumni who talked about using their theater degrees in the corporate world. and the skills that they learned in theater. And so that was really helpful. We had another alum come and talk to our students who market our shows because she's a marketing director at a major regional theater in Oregon. And so she came on and talked about that. So doing virtual stuff is really
Absolutely. I think it's one of the programs that I participate in. Our community advisory board, we do it virtually. And I think that helps us get people whose availability that money wouldn't allow it. That's good. Another thing is, off the top of my head, the virtual made me think about it because sometimes virtually allows this to happen as well, the guest lectures from alums or people out there in the community. And somebody who's spent their career out there in the business world or something like that, having a chance to come talk to some college students is kind of a big deal. Anthony Anderson.
So this not speaking for my program, but I think maybe for all programs on this campus. I think that one of the things that a lot of the faculty here, and I was thinking about, people talking about, I had to do this, I did this, as we expand to try to make connections in the community. It's again, it stretches our bandwidth. One of the things that I feel like we've lost here is support staff. We have lost support staff. I know in UC, we have so few staff, but in fact, if a staff member gets sick, that paralyzed us for 3 days. So we need more staff across campus to support faculty to be able to do these sorts of things. Like when it comes to coordinating, there's a lot of things that they could really help with and we just don't have them.
I think that's really important. Really important point. Everyone's second, third, well, everybody's on that page. Anybody else want to contribute something?
Just wonder, how do we create these new mechanisms? Like, I think in the past, in some meetings, there were maybe in Momentum, we explored like a clearinghouse of those awesome things that students and faculty do for experiential learning, and things that students can take advantage of if it's open to all majors. Do we have something that exists on our website that can be an aspect of outreach to the community that can let folks in the community know, like, here's what we do? Because I think there are folks in our community that don't really know that UWG is here at all. They may live 5 miles down the road, so.
Or consolidated way to communicate all of this would be, very helpful. Absolutely.
Well, then I think I can speak to that a little bit. We have on Front Campus Drive in the provost office, Amanda Wright is in charge of, she's an executive director for community partnerships and nonprofit. And she does work with communities and they can come and meet with her, and she has an inventory of opportunities that were offered by some of the local businesses, and she does actual place internships. She is actually the one who headed up the program that the provost was talking about earlier, where it was an interdisciplinary cadre of students who came in and worked on a particular major project for this local construction firm. So we have opportunities that way, and maybe we just need to sort of publicize that more with the colleges to let you know what's out there as you then begin to talk to folks in the community about these opportunities for students.
I wonder if we as a Senate body should connect with it and just have it come to executive committee. And then blow it up, get it bigger, get the word out there somehow.
Sure. Where is it?
Well, in anthropology, a lot of our connection to our community comes through the actions of the Wade Center, the Master Lab, and others. But the highest priority we have there as far as reaching potentially students comes in the sense that our students don't know what anthropology is when they pick a major. It's not even it's not in their lexicon. So we have to get awareness out to them very early, and we do that through hosting and visiting high schools. I think between just the Waring Center and Bethel, we probably see upwards of 6 or 7 high school leader as guests or as hosts per year. Of course, the Waring Center is now elevated itself, really dedicated to community partnerships and interactions. They have on each of their different sort of missions, they have different collections of, boards that will inform them about, whether that's sort of, indigenous community boards for projects in Native American archaeology, or whether there's, different, territorial needs that the state might have. For all those, efforts, they have to meet with and take into account stakeholder needs. In their case, it comes a lot from the fact that they have these contracts that put them in engagement with the state archaeology, and with, the needs of the state in general, for housing, remains and artifacts. And that helps them to have those connections, then use for student employment, between volunteership and internships. That has been something that grew over the course of, a decade or two or three. So it's not the kind of, close win or low hanging fruit that we can nimbly approach. But then again, me grabbing a box of casts and heading out to Villa Rica to talk to some students about, extinct giant apes is, that is lower hanging fruit. So that's what we try to do on this for the day-to-day basis.
Please.
I did informal internship program with Southwire in 2017. And me and Southwire go way back because when I was here, an undergrad here, I got a job and I worked with a person who ended up being the human resources director of Southwire. So they knew me, they knew I spoke Spanish, and they called me a few years back and they said, Anka, we really need somebody who speaks Spanish. And I said, okay, I can help you with that. And then she said, oh, they have to speak Russian as well. And I was like, okay, I'm Romanian, I'm not Russian. Easy mistake. And then she said, well, and if they have a degree in international relations or economics, that would be even better. And I said, I have just the person. And she was hired. And then when she was hired, I was hired at University of West Georgia in 2015, and she called me, she said, we need interns who speak Spanish, but they also have to be working towards a degree in the business school as well. And so I said, okay, I can help you with that. So how I think that we can build on community engagement is if we have a university-wide database of unicorns. That means students who speak Russian and speak Spanish, actors who can do, computer science, nurses who speak Spanish. So we all have those students who are so special and who are such a combination of the Renaissance men and women that walk among us. And it would be really easy to do just one page with their CV and their photo and what makes them special. Let's call them unicorn. They're the top in all of the departments, so that when companies come to us, we have something to offer, or we can just send them a link and just look at what we have to offer. They are our unicorns. It's really easy to do. I provided Southwire with 3 interns who spoke Spanish and a degree in business, and this unicorn person, economics, Russian, and Japan.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That sounds good. The unicorn database.
Yes.
Okay, any final thoughts? Go ahead, please,
I
Brian.
think we have an opportunity to think about how we engage with our university advancements. We have so many donors that were either alumni and they're very affluent, either in the area or not, and they're contributing back and want to know how they can contribute back. But sometimes as faculty, we don't know how to engage, or we do engage and we're told not to engage because they may already be funding projects that we don't know about. It's not anything more than we don't know that they're already giving X number of dollars in this area. Don't make that happen. And so I think there's an opportunity for our faculty to understand how university advancement functions, and when we engage with community, what is the best way to do that so that we all will step on each other's toes.
Yeah, we definitely need some
rethinking of the advancement and frontline faculty relationship. It also kind of goes to the earlier point of sometimes we don't know what we can and can't do. Sometimes we don't know where the line is. I know some I run into political scientists, like, would you talk to? What do you, not supposed to, that congressman, whatever you're supposed to go through, government relations, whatever. I'm more of a thanks for forgiveness type person. All right, folks, I think we can go ahead and wrap up today. If we have any final thoughts, we can do it informally, but we'll go ahead and adjourn. Unless anybody has strong protests. No strong protests, we'll go out and hopefully this weekend is smooth. But not too smooth because we have.
Gotta make sure. Hope we all survive.
That's the deal. About not being able to be Article 2. And so I noticed that there are voters are following so do I I mean, I found somebody, but it takes money again. Yeah, I didn't, I don't have to help you by carrying that, so that's that. It's for yeah.
Going down.
Okay, so I'll just like when that time comes, I'll. Okay.
Even. I'll start with a question. No. Yeah.